What we ask is for the bill to be passed at the soonest possible time. This way, we can give our Moro brothers enough time to prepare, thus enabling them to nurture the seeds of meaningful governance which were planted for the Bangsamoro.
Last year, the Philippines faced one of its worst battles in recent years as government forces faced off against Daesh in Marawi. The conflict went on for months and more than 1,000 people were killed. Now, some are warning the conditions are ripe for it to happen again, including the leader of the country's main rebel group. The Moro Islamic Liberation Front was once a staunch enemy of the government, but after decades of fighting, they reached a peace deal. The Moro rebels would lay down their weapons, and in return, the Muslim majority in Mindanao was promised autonomy under the Bangsamoro Basic Law. That autonomy hasn't yet been delivered, and President Rodrigo Duterte has warned another war could break out if the legislation collapses. The Philippine Congress has promised to fast-track the bill for Muslim self-rule in the southern island, but could it possibly lead to unintended consequences? Well, for more, let's speak to Malcolm Cook. He's a senior fellow at the Institute of Southeast Asian Studies in Singapore. Malcolm, thanks so much for joining us. It almost seems counterintuitive, as many would assume, that a president like Duterte would want to assume actually more power in a region with a separatist movement like this, but he doesn't. Why do they believe so strongly that autonomy is the answer?
I guess the Moro insurgency groups, including the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, which is now the biggest one, I guess for the last 40 years at least have been negotiating with the Philippine government for some variation of an autonomous region within Muslim Mindanao, the Muslim majority part of the second largest island of the Philippines. And President Duterte is the first president ever in the Philippines from Mindanao. So there are great hopes in Muslim Mindanao that President Duterte could finally deliver a final peace agreement, including this Bangsamoro Basic Law that his predecessors, since President Marcos, as I say, 4 decades ago, have failed to do. But so far, for the first year and a half of the Duterte administration, there has been almost no progress on that front.
Describe, if you can, how an autonomous state in Mindanao would look with the Moro Islamic Liberation Front at the helm. Would we see a democracy develop in the way that we in the West would define it?
There's already an existing autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao, but it hasn't delivered what people hope. So it's an autonomous government under the Philippine state that has held elections since the early 2000s, and that was part of a peace agreement struck between the Manila government and another large Moro insurgency group. So the Bangsamoro Basic Law is to enhance the existing and largely failed autonomous region that already exists and probably shift the political power for that region to the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, who negotiated the current peace agreement with the preceding government, the Aquino government. So there's already an autonomous region there that's under Philippine law, but it hasn't delivered peace to the region. There are hopes that this new peace deal with the MILF could finally deliver peace, but as I say, it seems stalled, and its prospects are not as good as they looked even a year ago.
Okay, well, knowing the region as well as you do, is this the best way forward, in your opinion?
It's certainly the best way forward, but the problem is there are many Moro insurgency groups, some large ones that are negotiating for peace, but there's more than one. But there are a growing number of smaller terrorist groups like the ones that led the siege of Marawi that are increasingly popular among alienated youth and have no interest in negotiating for peace with the Philippine government. So even if this peace agreement is finally put into legislation, something that's been 4 years in the making, these terrorist groups that became famous worldwide with the Marawi siege will still probably be there and will probably try to disrupt any movement towards a political solution. So a peace agreement with the legislation to put it into practice is needed, but it's not going to solve everything.
Okay, but by giving this autonomy to the region, does it take the responsibility off the government's hands, in a sense?
Certainly under the agreement signed and the draft bill, for example, the police force for the autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao will come under the autonomous government, and many other areas like control of natural resources will be more in the hands of this autonomous government. So this new autonomous government, if it is created, will have more powers, including police powers, and hence should be more responsible for law and order in that area.
Okay.
But as I say, we're pretty far away from that, particularly because President Duterte also wants to introduce federalism, which could override all of this anyways.
I was just about to ask about that. I mean, what about the larger system of governance in the Philippines? Duterte does want federalism, a devolved government. Will he get it, and would it work?
It's probably the best chance. There's been discussions, especially for groups outside Metro Manila, for decades that the Philippines, a very diverse archipelagic state, would be better under federalism, but earlier attempts have failed to get constitutional revisions that are necessary. President Duterte is very committed and has very large majorities in the two houses of parliament. So if federalism is going to happen in the Philippines, it'll happen now. Whether it'll work or not, I'm very doubtful, because the Philippines has so many different linguistic groups, over 60 or 70, and the federal system they're talking about is only creating 5 provinces. So the provinces won't match the linguistic and ethnic diversity of the Philippines, but will probably just create another level of government, and the Philippines already has too many politicians. So I think federalism, which Duterte has long seen as the solution, again, I'm not sure it will actually make the situation better.
Okay, Malcolm Cook, joining us there from Singapore. Thanks so much for that.